About 600 homes have been destroyed in Ghana due to flooding, and in Kenya, thousands of persons have been displaced, and even a road destroyed by a river outflow there in Kenya, leaving many frustrated. And all of these have been attributed to climate change and other man-made activities. And at the same time, hundreds or to about 200 governments have convened in Dubai to discuss climate change, how to solve some of these problems we are facing and pave the way forward. One of the major things being discussed at COP28 this year is renewable energy. How does it concern us, and what is the need for renewable energy? Good afternoon to you, dear viewers watching us right now. My name is Jabi Kitty. This is the program Nature's Connect, and of course this program comes up on High Television every Thursday as from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And we are all about creating an environmental conscious population and connecting you deeper with nature, fighting for nature protection, and ensuring that we are all safe from all environmental hazards. And of course, today will be interesting as any other day. And today, as mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about renewable energy. We'll equally take a crisscross and visit Ghana, visit Kenya, and see how flooding situations there are dealing with people in that part of Africa. And we'll equally be talking about COP28. You want to stay glued and, of course, watch this show to the end, as we equally have another interesting guest who will be talking to us today about some of these things. My name is Jerry Kitty, as I earlier highlighted. I am your humble host. We take on this jingle break, and when we come back, we kickstart the program officially and we set it rolling. It is a pleasure to have your company, dear viewers. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, well, you've not missed quite a lot because the show is just starting and we have a lot on the table to discuss today. Yes, as earlier mentioned, we shall be looking at flooding situation in Kenya, and we'll equally be looking at COP28, what is going on over there in Dubai, and why are we talking so much about renewable energies. And of course, as I earlier mentioned, we also have a guest on standby to talk to you about some of these things. But before we unveil our guest and topic for today, let's equally look at some of the things making waves around the environmental sphere in Africa and the world. We start with Ghana, as about 600 homes at Dawenya in the Ningo Prampram district of the Greater Accra region in Ghana have been flooded following an overflow of the Dawenya irrigation dam. The flood has displaced hundreds of residents in the area, forcing a number of them to evacuate their homes to safer places. The flood occurred on Monday when the dam overflowed its banks due to heavy rainfall, which, according to some residents, caught them off guard, resulting in significant damage. The authorities of the area were at the scene to console with the victims, of course, and in the meantime, possible explanations are being given as to the reason for this overflow. Authorities have expressed that an automatic spillway happened, which allowed water to spill once, and it got to a certain level that that prevented the dam from breaking, hence leading to the flooding situations. And at this point, we want to express should we say, sympathy to those in Ghana, and we hope they recover. And that is one of the reasons why we keep hoping and filing for a national disaster management plan, rather, for African countries. And of course, from Ghana, we take you to Kenya to see how flooding situation is equally dealing with them over there. We look at this road here in Kenya that has been destroyed by the outflow of water here at River Tana in the northern part of Kenya. See how many denizens have been frustrated due to this unfortunate incident. And it is not just the road. Our report suggests that Kenya has been facing lots of these flooding situations right from the month of October, which has led to a displacement of thousands of persons. It makes us to understand that Climate change is a pertinent call for concern, which we all have to channel and join in our efforts to look at how to ameliorate these particular problems. Speaking about channeling efforts to ameliorate the issue of climate change, let's look at what is happening over there in Dubai, as about 200 governments are convening for the COP28. COP simply meaning our Conference of Parties, and this being the 28th edition, which is holding in Dubai, and it started today. Today is November 30, and it shall be continuing on, spanning on to December 12, if I'm not mistaken. And they would have government delegates, youth leaders from across the globe who shall be meeting to deliberate on some environmental issues and, of course, craft policies to help the globe fight climate change. At the moment, we've had some of the conferences still going on, and the conference just began today. We've been having reports of persons, dignitaries gracing the event, such as King Charles III, who is there presently in Dubai. And we hope that this meeting bears fruitful results, as these people should be able to craft policies to help us deal with climate change. We're promising you more updates of our COP28 subsequently. Today being the first day, it has been difficult for us to get information so far, but hopefully in the course of the following editions, we'll be able to hand over to you updates. And just to mention that we equally have Cameroonian leaders who are presently in Dubai right now for COP28 to represent the country. We shall be speaking to one of the leaders in the course of the program. In the meantime, let's take on a jingle break, and we'll come back. We unveil our guest for today and get straight to our topic of discussion, conversing about COP28 and the concept of renewable energies. Welcome back, dear viewers. Glad you can join us for this program today. And right now, I want to share with you a very interesting story as I unveil my guest for today. I'm talking about a man who began in the legal affairs and is now equally channeling the matters of the environment. And then I'm wondering, how did a legal luminary, a legal mind switch on, or not maybe switch, but how did he relate and link up to matters of the environment, especially renewable energy? I'm talking about a fine gentleman who started by being the legal advisor for an NGO, Greening Forward, in 2019, and since then he has taken interest in environmental protection and has been working towards that particular part, as he has been involved in several projects concerning the environment. And of course, we want to tap from his expertise today on the program. I'm talking about Mr. Eni Elive. He says he's a soon-to-be lawyer and, of course, an environmental protection advocate. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Elive.
Thank you, Javi, and I'm thrilled to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
I know you said it's a story for another day, but I want to get into details as to how we have a lawyer and an environmental advocate.
Right away. Really, if I say I've always loved the environment from childhood, it will be a lie and probably an overtold story. I have a friend, a childhood friend by name Phoebe Paris. We shared the same classroom. I think that was Form 1A.
Yeah.
So he happened to read environmental science at the University of Buea. So since we spent so much time together, he kept on talking about environmental protection, about nature, about conservation. So it dominated so much of our conversations. And the long story short, together we put up resources with a few other friends and we founded Greening Forward Cameroon. And we had partners in Greening Forward in America. And since then, I've not found my way out.
Okay, that is just to show you how important conversations as these are necessary. We need conservation conversations, as funny as that may sound, but yes, when we keep on talking about environmental issues, it makes people around us to be quite conscious. That is why a program as this is here, so we can constantly remind you about some environmental troubles and how we can fight them. And today we're talking about one environmental trouble, talking about the issue of fossil fuels and how it relates to climate change, and one major solution, which is renewable energies. But just before we get there, let's speak about COP28. We have some youth leaders there in in Dubai representing us for COP28. And I'm sure you've been in the environmental sphere, you must be aware what COP28 is all about. Somebody may be watching in the house and it's like, oh, what is this COP28 really about? What should he or she know?
Okay, like you actually mentioned, COP signifies Conference of Parties. And the Conference of Parties is like the supreme decision body making of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So COP is like an assembly of countries which meet every year. Countries who have signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they meet every year to discuss strategies and to evaluate their progress in protecting climate change. So the first COP was in 1995 in Berlin, and since then we've had 28 years. So that's why they named COP28. So they've had it for every other year. So after the 28 years, you have COP28.
So next year we'll have a COP29 for next 2 years?
Yes. No, next is every year.
It's every year.
So next year you have COP29.
Okay.
Last year was COP27. Now the seat of the COP is at where the Secretariat is, and that's in Bonn, in Germany. But countries can volunteer to host COP. That's when you can now have it hosted in different countries. COP27 last year was in Egypt. This year is in the UAE. Next year, if another country volunteers, you have it in another country.
One day it'll be in Cameroon, so amen. How important is this COP28? What is the need for us, for the world to gather in one particular place? How important is this to us?
Yeah, it is. You know, environmental concerns are transboundary. Yeah, because if one country maintains a very high standard and the rest maintain a low standard, it's going to affect somebody. That's what I mean to say is, if in Cameroon we're doing so well in climate protection, then our neighbors are not doing as much, it still affects us. It's counterproductive. So it is very important for countries to meet in an occasion like COP to discuss how they can come to a collective effort. And now COP serves as a platform to monitor each other country's commitment. You have things like carbon emission trading. Carbon emission trading is like countries have a commitment. Let's say under the COP you have a commitment that you're going to pollute 5%. So you can now say cut down your commitment to, let's say, 3%. So you still have 2% to pollute. You can now sell that. You can now request now for carbon credit. Now you now sell that 2% to a country which is very expensive to cut down pollution, because you know pollution is closely linked to economic progression. So now you can now sell that 2% to a country which is very economically expensive to cut down production. So these are all some of the mechanisms that the COP try to look, and the countries have to also report their emission levels and all those things. So it's very important for this country to meet and look for a way forward.
Okay, it's important for them to meet and look for a way forward. And this particular year, for COP28, one of the major points highlighted is renewable energies. And as you see, because they have been saying that there's been a lot of carbon emission due to the contribution of fossil fuels, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we look a little bit at the concept of fossil fuels vis-a-vis renewable energy. What harm is fossil fuel doing to the ecosystem, and what is the concept of renewable energy? How does it come to solve this?
Okay, thank you so much. Now, when fossil fuels, I think you have like petroleum and other sources of coal, when you burn them, they produce carbon dioxide and other gases. Now, when this carbon dioxide, you have things like carbon dioxide, you have methane. When they go to the atmosphere, they form what is known, and they mix with the other substances you have in the atmosphere, what is known as greenhouse gases. Now, the effect of these greenhouse gases is that it prevents the heat from the earth to go back directly to the atmosphere. So now the greenhouse gas acts like a shield, and they trap this heat. That's why you have places that are becoming more hotter. And when places become more hotter, you have the issue of global warming. Areas which are like, you go to the North Pole where you have a lot of ice, the effects are done now. Ice will start melting, increasing sea levels. Countries which are small countries around these oceans, islands, they'll have high sea levels, they might disappear. So it goes to a broader context.
And Cameroonians may start wondering where dry season has gone to, as they have been doing already.
Exactly, exactly. So now these greenhouse gases, they are cause global warming. So now renewable energy is a solution, because renewable energy is energy from sources that are replenishable and which have little or no effect on the environment. You use things like solar, you use things like wind, and you use like geothermal energy. Now this energy, the sun, you have daylight almost every day. You might have wind, it's replenishable, and they have no environmental cost. So that is why the renewable energy is the energy of tomorrow. That's why the focus now is on renewable energy as a way to ensure that states have enough energy to develop their economics. At the same time, they protect the environment.
I've equally seen, I watched a video sometime where I saw, I don't know if it was in Nigeria or Ghana, there was this poultry owner,
yes,
and he was using these waste products from the poultry to produce electricity. And I was wondering, how come? Is that also part of the renewable energy?
Absolutely. You know, one of the sources of renewable energy is biomass. Biomass is using plants and animals' products to generate electricity. So, using waste products from animals can generate electricity. Most of the cooking gas we have, the cooking gas we use in Cameroon, is generated from biomass. So it's the same, you see, it has no cost to the environment and it's economical.
Alright, it has no cost to the environment and it is economical. And as earlier mentioned, it is one of the major areas for COP28 this particular year, as they shall be discussing about renewable energies. And just before we get now to the context of Cameroon, and how Cameroon can adopt these efforts of renewable energy or these policies of renewable energy against fossil fuel, let's still stay with the matters of COP28 as we look at one Cameroonian who has been representing Cameroon when it concerns the Conference of Parties. Last year she was in Egypt for COP27 and she represented Cameroon with the UN Global Climate Ambassador. She won the position of the UN Global Climate Ambassador, which I think was a perfect win for Cameroon because that was the first edition of that particular competition and Cameroon took it. And this year, a different country may take it, but of course we still want to applaud her for her efforts. But then again, let's hear from her experience with last year COP27, and then we also hear from her what is expected of the leaders who will be in COP28 this year. Let's listen to Ewi Lama.
Hello, my name is Eri Stephanie Lama Mukwele. I am an environmental and climate justice advocate and also the UN Global Climate Action Ambassador 2022. And I'm delighted to go to COP this year and to be able to represent Cameroon further after its representation at COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh. And it was an amazing experience for me being a first time. However, I was able to connect and get to understand a lot around advocacy, around climate justice, and also on the aspect of negotiations. And I was able to also participate on several platforms, including the Global Landscape Forum platform, where I was able to present my story and my documentary, African Voices for Africa's Forests, and to let the world know who we are. And this time, we are set and we are ready to be able to visit Dubai and to get to understand what is actually the decisions that were made at the African COP in Egypt, what decisions have actually been acknowledged and what decisions are going to be brought forward before us. For Cameroonians that are visiting Dubai this year for COP28, there is a clarion call that we call out to our world leaders and also to our national leaders for climate finance. After a conversation that we had with Al Gore, the former vice president of US, who is also the founder and the founder of the Climate Reality Project, he mentioned that out of 15% of climate finance that is sent to the global south or to Africa, only 1% goes to rural communities and to indigenous people. And this is very critical. We as young people must be able to rise up our voices and take this message to COP28 and let them know that we are aware of what is happening with climate finance across Africa and in the global south. And the percentage that is sent for adaptation in Africa is very small. And we must be able to ensure that our stakes are risen so that we can also take advantage, take charge of the climate crisis in our communities and go forward to solve it. So young leaders visiting COP28 this year focus on climate finance, also focus on bringing women's voices to climate change decision-making platforms and programs, and ensure that youth representation is increased through Yongo and other platforms that youth are part of, so that their voices can also be part of our global decisions and they can also effectively feel like they are needed within our policy spaces. So we are going to be there from the 30th of November, and we are going to have great conversations. Meanwhile, we want you to know that it is not just having the conversations at COP28, but bringing back the decisions to our homes and ensuring that they are fully implemented at its highest cost. So I'm looking forward to meet up with Cameroonians at COP28, and I'm looking forward to the great conversations and the great impact that we are bringing back home. Thank you very much.
Okay, to the common man watching, what will you tell him or her the importance of this COP28?
The Conference of the Parties, COP20, the COP as it is called, this is the 28th session it is being held. And why these meetings are being held is because every year we have decisions that are affecting our globe. We are seeing how our climate is changing, and world leaders decided that it is important for us to be able to come together and see what is happening with our climate and provide solutions to be able to solve our climate. This year in the climate calendar has been considered as one of the hottest years, and early July this year was one of the hottest months in the climate calendar. So you understand that these are important issues happening within our communities that our world leaders have taken into consideration and say, let's sit down and talk how we can be able to solve this problem, how we can stop our polluters, or how we can hold polluters to be able to pay for the damages they are causing. And that is why we are going to Dubai, to be able to hold polluters responsible and to be able to ensure that the right finance is directed to the right quarters, so that lives that are causing the least climate impact can also be able to be compensated for the damages that have been caused on them, and also the damages that have been caused on their communities and their societies. That is the reason why COP28 this year is really important, and we want all voices to be heard, no matter how close they are shutting up your voice. We want you to force yourself out and make sure that your voice reaches the right quarters, so that decisions that are taken can be favorable, not only for us as youths today or our parents, but also for those that are not yet born, so that they'll be able to benefit from the decisions that we have taken this year. And we are calling especially US and China to make the right decisions at COP28 this year. We are tired of hearing fake promises, and we want to be very clear with whatever decision is going to be taken this year in Dubai. And please forget about the fact it's a leisure city. Go for the purpose of policies, go for the purpose of people. Don't just focus on the money.
Cameroonian leaders going to Dubai should not take it as a fun-fair trip, but as a matter, as a platform to channel Cameroonian problems and of course bring back solutions. That is a message from Elwi, the current UN Global Climate Ambassador. And of course, we shall be handing over now to somebody from a different country, or hopefully maybe still from Cameroon. And of course, she also said we have to watchdog countries like America for their greenhouse emission. Let's get back to matters right in the studio, as we're talking about greenhouse emission and of course renewable energies as a solution to the problem. Let's have with me and my guest, Emi Elibo. Let me come back to you again.
Yes, please.
We have been talking about renewable energies. You perfectly explained the concept. But now, what's the in Cameroon? Do we have it in Cameroon? If maybe a local, maybe somebody watching us right now, maybe if it passes through a particular street or somewhere, can you be able to identify one example of renewable energy in Cameroon?
Yeah, I think so. If you walk around, you see there are a lot of places, not on a large scale, you see solar panels on top of roofs. And I think there are a number of people who make use of renewable energy of Cameroon, but typically we have just major one source, which is solar energy, which is very common. Yeah. So, like we've mentioned, it's not just about for it to become very popular. It needs both government and individual stakeholders to invest in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think when we're still talking at the backstage, you mentioned that there's a power plant in the northern region of the country.
Yes, please. You see, if you last year, so September last year, the government inaugurated 2 solar power plants in the north. That's in Mawa and Kide in the north. That's September last year. That just shows you that the government recognizes the fact that renewable energy is the energy of tomorrow.
Okay, so So aside the, or let's say in comparison to the other methods or efforts of renewable energy, in Cameroon we have just the solar panels.
Solar panels is the one which is most common. You have other sources of renewable energy like wind energy. You need to get wind turbines. You have geothermal energy, which is taking heat from underneath the ground and you need to generate power. We have biomass, which is widely also used in Cameroon. Like that's what they use for most of the cooking gas. Yeah, like I've mentioned, it has to come from everyone. Right? Individuals at home can contribute to saving energy, either by producing their own renewable energy or in their patterns of consumption. What I mean by production is you can split your energy at home. You can use part renewable and part HEP, which is what normally generates electricity. Because every amount of energy you save means less electricity used for you. It means less fuel used by the utility company, in this case NEO, and it means less greenhouse gases, and it also means a better environment for everyone. Now, when you look at consumption parties, individuals at home can save energy by, let's say you prefer energy saving bulbs. You use fluorescent to LED bulbs, you save energy, and you limit the amount of time you use the switch, because each time you turn off a switch, it increases the load on the electricity grid, and each time you turn it off, it reduces it. So if you turn off your switch on and off the whole day, it keeps on increasing the energy load. It puts more strain on the energy system. What individuals can also do is, if you have an air conditioning system, you should ensure to make sure the curtains and the doors are closed when you're using your air conditioners. It saves energy, because like we've mentioned, it's an effort that everyone, it has to be a collective effort, both government and individual.
So while the government is working towards it, we equally have to contribute at our own individual ends.
Yes, please.
By managing, switching off the bulbs right on time.
Yes, those are just some. Another one might also include plugging out your appliances when they are not in use. Because when the appliances are not in use and they are plugged, it still continues taking up electricity. And that increases the electricity on the grid. That's what the utility power company donates. So we can, by taking these small steps every day, we can help to reduce the energy we use and protect the environment.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Eni. And now somebody may be tempted to ask, or maybe if somebody were to do a comparative analysis between Cameroon and other countries and their level of renewable usage, you discover that most of the countries, or most other countries, they have high usage of renewable energy, while Cameroon, well, we are making the steps, but I should say baby steps. What could account, or maybe somebody may ask, what accounts for this drawback? Is there maybe a possible explanation for this?
Okay, I'll point out two for the course of time. The first is...
we still have time for now.
Okay. I'll point out two major concerns. The first thing we have to understand is that the elements for renewable energy, they are not homogeneous. Weather elements, renewable energy largely depends on weather elements like precipitation, wind and cold. Those are the things renewable energy really depends on. And we have to understand that it is not homogeneous throughout. Weather condition varies with time and place. So some countries are hotter, others are colder, and some are more windy than others. So if you look at Cameroon is not the hottest country in the world. We might probably not be the coldest, or might probably not be the most windy. So the one which is more aligned to our environment is solar panels. And you can also have wind turbines, but not as much wind as before. The next issue which accounts for the low use of renewable energy in Cameroon, it has to be technology, right? Wind turbines, solar panels, and other geothermal, they require huge amount of technological know-how in terms of equipment and in terms of people managing those equipment. So it's very easy to man solar panels, but when you talk about a geothermal plant, these are things which require high level of technology. So we train more people, and we also produce some of these. Once we start producing solar panels, wind turbines, it will become cheaper to use renewable energy than it is now.
I think that was the same question I was almost about to ask. We do not have, we're not the hottest country, neither are we the coldest, neither do we have enough wind for these wind turbines, as you call them. But at some point there has to be some kind of a balance, because as the world is purging towards renewable energy, Cameroon cannot be left behind. So definitely, how can we overcome these challenges and cope with world trends?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Now, to overcome these challenges, one of the major things you can do is appropriate weather forecasting. Right? If we have a good weather forecasting, it can tell you the weather of tomorrow, the weather of next week. With having a good weather forecasting, it helps you to know where and when to place these renewable, these solar plants or power plants. You can see the government is moving towards the north because I believe it is hotter. Yeah. Another thing we can do as a country is to spread these renewable energy plants over a wider geographical area.
Okay.
Right? Let's say if we're in Buea, if you build a wind farm or a solar farm that stretches from Buea right up to Douala, what that does is, since the weather in Buea and Douala is different, where temperatures is high, when temperatures are higher, it will compensate the other areas where temperatures are lower. So that's one other solution we can do. One other thing we can also do is by looking for storage facilities, right? Because these renewable energies, most of them, you can use storage facilities to save energy when the temperatures are very high, like in the dry season, and use them during the wet season. So those are things we as a country can do to make sure that we catch up.
Okay, but what about the possibility of maybe it should be state authorities or NGOs trying to explore this other trend? I think the biomass aspect of it, as referring back to the video I watched on TikTok, thanks to TikTok, where a poultry owner was using, or still uses, waste product from the poultry to provide electricity and all of that. So it maybe is a possibility of the government maybe following that, pursuing that particular path.
Yeah, it is possible for the government to do. Like we all know, the government's hands are full.
Okay.
Right? So individuals like you and I, civil society organizations, should take up the issue of education, because people cannot embrace what they do not really know.
True.
Yeah, so civil society organizations, those working in environmental protection, conservation, human rights, whatever, they should see it as an opportunity to educate the masses. Because I tell you, most people know that renewable energy is more expensive than HEP. That when you see somebody get a solar panel, it means it's very expensive. But you cannot come to that conclusion. Before you get to a conclusion like that, you need to calculate what is known as the levelized energy cost. That's what then LCO. To calculate that, you need to divide the facility cost divided by the lifetime generation capacity. The facility cost is, let me say, the cost you're going to spend all throughout that project in terms of creating it, operation, that's fuel, and you divide it by the amount of electricity that power plant or that geothermal plant will generate for a lifetime. Let's take an example. If you use, let me say, 5 million francs, you put 5 million francs to set up a power plant, a solar plant. Okay, now you divide that by the, let me say, the person lives for 70 years. Let me say, I know it's a little bit short, but the Holy Book says 3 scores and 10.
Yeah.
That's 70, right? So it means it's a long time. The person lives for 70 years, and each day that power plant generates, like, let's say, 1,000 kilowatts. Now, if you take 1,000 kilowatts times 70 years and you divide by 5 million, you have 71 kilowatt per dollars. That tells you that it will give you the amount of money you spend in your lifetime to pay for electricity.
Okay, it simply means that it may seem expensive in the short run, but it will be worth the while in the long run and much more beneficial and less costly. Now, I think he has mentioned a very important aspect here, society organizations trying to maybe engage into projects that would educate the population on how to get engaged into renewable energies. I mean, just imagine, we're giving you free tips for your grant writing. So now let's look at the issue of private investors. You mentioned that the government has been trying to engage into renewable energies, but we are still having baby steps, or maybe there are no steps at all, maybe, as concerned to renewable energies from the private sector. So for private investors who may be watching, because for every businessman, there is a concept of money. Maybe, or how do I get my money back, and such worries. How do they get involved, and what is maybe the possibility of them getting their money back?
Okay, they should see it as a possibility, as an opportunity for business. Right? When something becomes so much of an issue, Cameroonians almost across the board complain of unstable power supply. You understand? And so they can take it as an opportunity to invest. Now, they cannot do it on their own. They need the framework, they need the modalities, and that goes back to the state. Now, if the state wants to encourage renewable energy, one of the mechanisms they can use, or the points they can use, is to give tax exoneration for people importing those things, because we don't produce them here.
Yeah.
If those things are cheaper to import, they'll be more available.
Okay.
And when we get the material, the next thing we have to do is training. So private investors can invest, work with the government to see strategies, especially in rural areas, which they can use renewable energy to power these communities. It's a huge business for them, because there are many rural areas in Cameroon which have no access to hydroelectricity.
True. And of course, renewable energies like the solar panels that you mentioned could be a good venture. So we are hoping that maybe a private investor, businessman is watching somewhere, and you see it as a business that you could step into. Maybe if somebody wants to get involved in a business as that, how do they start it off? Maybe where should they go to? How does it start? Okay, listen, you've told me I'm interested now. I have my small 500,000 pounds somewhere. How do I start?
Well, I will not do free publicity.
Okay.
But if you want to get, the first thing in any business, you acquire the knowledge, right? If you acquire the knowledge, then you go for the material, right? And like we said, I think if you go to Douala, you might find renewable energy. There are materials there that you can get, or you can look for your suppliers everywhere else. The most important thing is there's the market in Cameroon, right? So when you're advised by business experts, they will tell you how much you can invest, you come up with a business plan. But the most important thing is that the market is there, because there's a need for it in companies and in households.
Okay, thank you very much, Ellie. There is a need for it in companies and in household. Now that may prompt me into question the more, or maybe to maybe want to explore the minds of the of individuals who are watching us right now, and asking, but how important is this for us? We have mentioned the importance of it from the global perspective, but bringing it down to Cameroon, to our own context, how important really is, how significant is renewable energy to the Cameroonian man or woman?
All right. You need energy in all its forms, and you need constant energy supply to grow a real emerging economy. So away from the global argument, we as Cameroonians, both companies and health facilities and households, you need alternative sources of energy to make sure that you are able to meet up with your production, with your services at every point in time. Just imagine, as we're in studio, power goes off. It would be an embarrassment, right? But if we had backup renewable energy, it wouldn't be a problem. So it's not just about renewable energy good for the environment, it's also good for you, because it will save you a lot of challenges in hospitals, in offices, at home. So it's good for the environment, and it's also good for you.
It's good for the environment, it's good for me, good for you, and equally good for the economy. Thank you very much for being here. Now, I have also one question. What is the extent, or what is the capacity of this renewable energy? Maybe somebody has a store with fridges. How powerful can it be? How long can it carry the people?
Now, going to the technical argument, you have, I'll just give generally, one, to put it in context, a bulb, which is, let me say a light bulb, which is about 100 kilowatts, right, can generate about 10 hours of renewable energy. So if you have a solar plant, which is a single wind turbine, which is well constructed, can generate electricity for 1,000 homes.
Wow.
Right?
And
a solar panel which
electricity for all your appliances.
For all your appliances. It depends on the capacity. A solar panel which covers, a solar farm which covers at least a hectare can power at least 200 homes. 200 homes. So that tells you that it's not energy which should be taken for granted. It has a huge potential, and it can serve a lot of people.
Okay. It has huge potentials, and it can save a lot of people, save the environment, promote the economy, and help you and I. In my village up to now, we still do not have electricity. Don't ask me where that is, but I'll still tell you. In the Sabongida village in Mr. Joseph Division, Dangaman Division, the Northwest region, we're yet to still have electricity from Enyo. So yeah, I think it could be a very plausible initiative for villages as that. We will not yet have electricity, or we will be facing inconsistency with electrical supply. Thank you very much. I think before I think we're slowly wrapping up. Before we want to complete on the program today, You mentioned some few things which I feel like maybe would be nice to reiterate before we conclude the program. What we can do at a personal level to reduce fossil fuel and carbon gas emission, what we can do to ensure that we equally promote renewable energy. I think you mentioned managing the appliances while plugging them off, when unplugging them rather,
Yes.
when they're not in use.
When they're
Maybe you
not
can
in
just
use.
reiterate that again.
Yeah. Now, when you have appliances, when they are not, when they are plugged, they don't stop running.
Okay.
They still consume electricity. So when they consume more electricity, what happens is you are putting more strain on the grid. The grid is the general electricity supply in a given region, right? Let me say the grid. Let me say we're in Boya. We have a grid and we have a base load. The base load is what the total energy Boya will need for 24 hours. So when you go out of your homes and you leave your appliances plugged, it increases the load the grid in Boya has to carry. And when the base load for Boya, which is 24 hours, when it goes above that base load, we have power cuts. So just imagine if everybody leaves their homes and unplugs their appliances and minimize the amount of time they switch off and on their light. It will help in reducing the load which the electricity has to carry, and we'll have more electricity, more frequent electricity.
Okay.
Yes. So.
All right. Thank you very much, Annie. We'll take a jingle break. When we come back, we shall be concluding the program, and of course, I want to put Annie on a hot seat a little bit. Let's take jingle and come back. Thank you very much for sticking with us right up to this point of the program. It has been a pleasure to have your company, because we won't be here talking every time without you being there to listen. This is Lectures Corner. It comes up on High Television every Thursday as from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And today we have been talking about COP28 and renewable energies. And given that renewable energies is one of the major topics for this year's Conference of Parties, which is ongoing in Dubai, and we equally mentioned that the Conference of Parties, that is COP28, started today, November 30, and will span out right up to December 12, where about 200 governments convening in Dubai with their delegates, youth leaders, and all of that, for them to channel environmental problems and, of course, craft solutions. And equally highlighted that we have some Cameroonian youth leaders who are there in Dubai. Also, in the beginning of the program, we took you to Ghana and Kenya to see how flood is messing with inhabitants there in Ghana and Kenya, as a road was destroyed in Kenya due to an overflow of a particular river, and in Ghana, an overflow of water from a dam has caused about 200 persons to be displaced. And these are the information to bring to you every Thursday when we come to the program, to let you know what is happening around the globe and why you should be very careful so it does not reach your turn. And our guest has been here all through, Annie, and they were talking to us about renewable energies. And just before we pack our bags out of the studio, I told you that we're putting Annie in very hot seats today. So it's very good, Mama, that I always play little games with my guest, and your case shall be very different. So this is it. I don't know how familiar you are with sea species, but let's go back in time and play a childhood game we used to play, or songs we used to sing when we were children. Do you know this song? Zinza, zinza, oh my little hands go.
I do.
If you please. So let's sing it
But
together.
not the weddings, please. Not the weddings.
Not the word is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Zinza,
Okay, you sing, I'll
zinza,
clap.
oh my little hands go. Kakaberry, if you please. For example, name of sea species: Beaquid, dolphin.
Be quick.
It's your turn to call it name.
A whale.
Beaquid, tilapia fish.
Be quick. Octopus.
Beaquid, manatee.
God. Be quick. A tortoise.
Tortoise.
Yeah.
Okay. Beaquid, a shark.
Be quick. almost said Morocco.
And the loser gets to buy the other lunch. And since you've lost the game, I'm expecting lunch from you this week.
I thought Morocco was a real fish.
Okay, it's a fish.
It's not?
You delayed in action. So, okay, we're about talking about it in the studio right now. Maybe any last words for the public as we draw the curtains for this edition?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I would just like to reiterate that everyone has a role to play to ensure that we have enough energy to grow our economy and to protect our environment. Any energy you save means less energy the electricity utility company has to produce. It means lower bills for you. It means less greenhouse gases, and generally, it means a better environment for us all. Thank you.
And it is a win-win situation for everybody. Thank you all very much. And just to remind you, dear viewers, that before you came to this world, or when you came to this world, you met trees, you met oceans, you met mountains, and you've been benefiting from these particular natural endowments. You've been harvesting forest species, you've been fishing from the ocean, and of course making use of the mountains, being part of it. But just imagine that if you'd want to leave this world and the children after you, or your grandchildren will not have or will not see these endowments, it will be very, very, very painful. So ensure that you keep it intact just as how your parents before you kept it intact. That is the advice, or maybe the guide I leave you with this particular afternoon. It has been a wonderful program being with you this afternoon. We hope that you take the round of again next week, Thursday, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Because remember, Nature's Corner is aired on High Television every Thursday as from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And right now, my guest, Ini and I, are telling you